I put a mechanical bull in that leasing office.
So cool.
Oh yeah. Everybody's thought, what are you doing, a mechanical bull? Well, I didn't have to plug it in. It's it moves, but it's not going to throw you off. But it's fun, and it's an Instagram photo. So anybody that has a great idea for amenities at the apartment community or in the apartment, hit me up. I want to hear your ideas, and I'm going to think tank it and figure out, is it something we can do? Does it make sense to do that? I have a maintenance supervisor who's been with me since day one. We couldn't live without him. He's amazing. For me to hand him a check that he could go buy a house was incredible. This was a moment for him, and I'm part of that. I built that opportunity for him. We think there's a lot of burnout in our industry, and I would argue that point. Yeah, burnout exists, but long before there's burnout, there's
housing, marketing, experience, training, lessons. You do it all. I mean, what don't you do? You speak, you teach, you build, you develop. Mm-hmm. You co-founded the residential arm of Huntington. So tell us a little bit about maybe your humble beginnings and getting into this industry. Did you start, was it on the leasing side?
Yeah. Okay. I started as a leasing consultant when I was 19 years old.
Yeah.
Without any idea what this industry was about, I really just went out there to rent an apartment, and they recruited me to become somebody who was renting to people like me. And I didn't even know this was an industry because I grew up in a little town in Ohio, and the only rentable apartment was like above the IGA. Okay. Oh. It wasn't a big apartment community with, well, back then in the 80s, racquetball courts, and remember those, and tennis courts and whatnot. So the idea that these beautiful apartment communities existed in South Florida, where I decided to move to when I was 18, and that, people could live there and they could have multiple pools and learn, meet a lot of neighbors and be in the middle of everything was just amazing to me. And so my approach to leasing was always find an apartment for them because they're going to say yes. It didn't ever occur to me that somebody wouldn't want to lease there. So from the very beginning, without even knowing it, I was the number one assumptive closer in the world. Amazing. Because I just didn't know better. I didn't know better. And I think that was something that launched my ability to be really good at leasing.
And now you're in Houston, obviously coming to Atlanta to visit us. We really appreciate that and spending time. I believe in real life. I think, Adrian, we both agree that there's nothing like being in real life. And to your point, leasing forever has been in person. And now we're seeing these shifts. Did you start out in Houston, or where did you start out in your career?
So I started in South Florida with Trammell Crow.
Okay.
And then I moved to our northern region based out of Chicago. Okay. That's when a big move happened for me. I went from working on site to being a training coordinator, and then the director of training, and then the director of training and marketing. Okay. From that, there was a very interesting time in the industry. A lot of the founders of the industry were exiting their current situations by starting REITs. And the North company with Trammell Crow spun off to Avalon and Gables. Yeah. And so I had to make a decision what I was going to do, stay in the North company, but they wanted me to be a regional manager. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to stay on that track of education. And so I sat down at a Denny's in Chicago, opened up the Tribune, because that's how you found jobs back then. Mm-hmm. And there was a position advertised for director of training with a company called Daytimers. And some people may remember we used to always carry these leather planners that told us what was happening in our day, had all of our contacts in there, had our notes, where we kept our expense records. And they were hiring a director of training. I interviewed for the job. I got it. But what I learned was I wasn't going to be doing internal training. I was going to be on the road doing team time management seminars for Daytimers. And the coolest part was this. The person that wrote the program and was with Daytimers at the time was Stephen Covey. On the heels of writing the book, First Things First, which was a follow-up to 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He tapped me to go on the road with him and be his opening speaker. I was 24 years old when this happened. And going into the top Fortune 50 companies in the United States and speaking and doing these team time management seminars, whether I was with Stephen Covey or I was on my own, all through Daytimers, was an eye-opener. I spoke at Hamburger University, Motorola, Fermilab, always hitting the car companies in Detroit, doing events in Washington, D.C. for our government. And just this exposure showed me a whole different side of education. And then I wanted to get back to the apartment industry. Believe me, I loved doing this. It was really exciting to be on the Today Show, to be on NBC Nightly News, but I really wanted to get back to the apartment industry. I knew I had a passion for it. And so the opportunity was to either go with Avalon or Gables a year later. These REITs were established and I could find my way there. And so I made the decision to move to Atlanta, and I joined Gables Residential as their director of people success. And it was an interesting time because we had to get rid of everything that we did that was Trammell Crow. So a lot of the things that I helped to build, I had to reinvent. And it was exciting because I had this base of knowledge from visiting and working with these amazing education groups in the Fortune 50 and 100 companies in America.
So good. I think about, you're speaking at so many events, you're doing a lot of online initiatives. If you think about the people you're working with and you're learning from, are there any people that were early in your career? You talked about Stephen Covey, and it was amazing. That book is
so cool.
So cool. You got to work with him. Is there anyone else who made a big impact on you, whether it was inside the industry? I'm sure there's so many people to name, but other people who made a big impact to you early on in your career?
Yeah.
That,
Definitely. I was such a sponge. And so anybody that I came in contact with, I was just absorbing. And like many people in this industry, we did not go to school for this.
Sure.
We did not see ourselves doing this, but here we all are. And many of us never got out, and that's great. But everybody that I came in contact with, I was a sponge. But there was a core group of people that I became friends with, locked arms with, very early on through a event called the Brainstorming Sessions. And it was a yearly event, and it was marketing and leasing focused, and it was crazy. We wore costumes, we had themes, we stood on chairs, we had noisemakers, but we were huddling in hotel rooms, learning from each other. We were sharing our ideas in this brainstorming fashion. And I quickly made these amazing relationships. And to this day, these people are still my mentors and my best friends. And I feel so lucky that even though I was the youngest person in the room, I was front seat and participating in this amazing time where we were inventing so much of this apartment industry and what we do today. And to walk away with those strong friendships, I know I can call any one of them for advice, for help, for a shoulder, whatever I need. In fact, today I had to reach out to Jennifer Nevitt. She's an amazing apartment developer in Philadelphia, and she just closed a big deal, and I'm so excited for her. But I had a teeny tiny little question, which is probably the most insignificant thing that will cross her desk today. And she responded to me like that. That is just a great opportunity that we've nurtured those relationships and we still have them with each other. And, we're all still in the industry.
A lot to unpack and a lot of questions that I have, right, to follow to what you just shared with us. First of all, I want to start with your public speaking career. This is probably one of the most terrifying things that a person can do. That's what I'm hearing. I can't say that, I am a terrified person doing that, but it's probably getting better the more you do it. How do you feel after so many years of, public speaking, being on a circuit, being right in a spotlight? How does it feel? Is it any different than when you started? What have you learned? What lessons do you have or tips for those that, want to become like you, want to be Kate one day?
I get that question a lot, and I'm always examining myself when I provide an answer, because I've gone through a whole lifetime of being a speaker. It's so much a part of my career. And I didn't know to be afraid. I didn't have that overwhelming sense of fear that I hear a lot of people have with professional speaking. So in that sense, I think I fell into the right thing, right? Yeah. Because it just was something that I thought was fun and came naturally. And I couldn't wait to jump out of that hotel room and go do my thing. I couldn't wait for my next gig. It was so much fun. For me, starting as a training director and speaking inside a company with our team members and impacting them and seeing how that time we spent together made a difference in their career is what I always based my next presentation on. I want people to do something different as a result of our time together. So whatever the topic is I'm speaking about, whatever we've come together to dissect, I want to make sure that there's something they're going to do different. I think starting in a corporate classroom setting broke the ice for me and made it, really realistic. And then to be invited to speak at convention. And then when Lisa Trezine and I founded the Apartment All-Stars, and we created this platform speaking opportunity with multiple speakers on a stage, we took it to another level. And it just got bigger from there. So when people ask for advice, I say, anytime you get a chance to get up and speak, do it. Whether it's making a toast at a wedding or answering a question in a meeting or, speaking up and sharing your idea or saying, I've learned this and I want to share it with my team members. You're practicing the craft and it's going to serve you if that's the path that you want to take.
I'll have to have you do hear one of those, speeches or a toast. I love to hear it. We've go to so many events and, you are always one of the headlining people at these events. Is there, you've probably got so many playbooks of all the studying, preparation, et cetera, whether it's IBS and AHB, you shared some incredible things. I'm curious about, you co-founded, the Hunington Residential side of the business and, have built that up to an incredible brand. I'm kind of curious, are there some playbooks that you've created or some styles of operations that you could maybe share with us, the ways you think about unblocking? I'd love to hear kind of your tips or secrets.
That's a really interesting question. And what I always rely on is how was I impacted? What gave me the skills, the opportunities? I know for certain I was surrounded by the very best people in this industry from day one. Trammell Crow attracted the very best, and I was so honored and lucky to work for them. These were the people that helped me become the #1 leasing consultant in the company, which was a huge honor, a huge accomplishment. I wanted to create that environment, even though my company is not going to be as big as Trammell Crow. That's not our goal. We're more boutique merchant builders, and we like our style and our pace. But I wanted to still create that. So for my team members, I'm always thinking about that environment, how I can create that culture, bringing in outside voices, giving them opportunities to learn. The majority of my companies and my group, they're under the age of 30. And so there's so much that I have to share with them right now. And I love taking that time with them. Right now, we're just coming out of 3 really strong lease ups, which means we're going through refis, possible sales. It's a whole new horizon for what's going to happen to those 3 properties. And you never really know until it all settles down. You either refied or you sold. One of it's going to happen, right? Yeah. So now we're into going through valuations and really understanding who's going to buy this property or what it's going to take to refi the property. And so I call us in the era now of lease tradeouts. So we went from lease origination and the velocity that we needed there for a lease up. And now I'm teaching them about lease tradeout and how each percentage is so important. Some companies have analysts that produce those reports and track those reports. I have leasing consultants that do it. And they dive into that and they create that data and they know those data points now that we're going to get excited about. They know a data point that a lender would get excited about. When I was a 19-year-old leasing consultant, I had no idea what that was. And so I'm really proud that I've created this culture where they're learning. And yeah, my team members get picked off a few times. Yeah, because we're really developing some well-rounded people. But that makes me so proud.
This episode is brought to you by Burnout, the leasing AI assistant built for multifamily. Burnout handles the repetitive tasks your team shouldn't have to. Answering questions, nurturing leads, scheduling tours 24/7 across every channel. Email, text, web chat, ILS, you name it, Burnout does it. No misleads, no burnout, just better performance. If you're ready to lease faster and smarter, visit burnout.com to see it in action. When it comes to learning and development, obviously a huge chunk of your career has been like in this area. I'm curious about how you see learning and development evolving in the advent of AI, because I could think of several ways in which AI is influencing it currently and it will in the future. Like I can think of incredible ways. Like it's just not nothing is gonna be like it is today in 3, 5, 10 years from now. So I'm curious about your take. How do you see AI impacting, and how do you see what it would look like to development and learning 3, 5 years from now?
Well, our learning is changing. How we source information, where we get information is changing. When I started in the industry, like we went to maybe a 3-day leasing class. I went to a week-long leasing class. I was so lucky. And I'd be immersed in leasing for a whole week. We would never send somebody to a whole week of a leasing class now. Education is now bites. It's a 5-minute bite. It's a maybe even a 30-second explainer video. And that's how our team members learn everything in life now. That's how they're getting their information. They're going to the phone and that's their new is that what we called it, encyclopedia back then? So I want to make sure that we're creating content that they can access really quickly. And the best way to do that is through AI, because we're a small team. I don't have a big training department that I was once a part of. We're all contributing to that right now. We're creating content that our team members can access really quickly, but we're perfecting that with AI. And soon I see an opportunity where AI is going to create that quick training seminar on whatever, 8-minute bite of information that they need. I know it's out there, but to be very specific to our culture and our company, I think we're getting closer and closer to being able to really use AI as a tool for that. I'm excited about that because it'll give us so much more reach and be very effective with encouraging learning and getting people the opportunity to step up to those tools.
I think right here we're on the same page 100%, because the way I see the future, and this could be the present, I'm not thinking about like years from now, it's where each employee is going to have what I call a training buddy, which is AI, which is actually an AI agent that knows what's their desire to learn, also knows what they have to learn, because, it's always going to be out there, sexual harassment and fair housing and the must-have classes, but also be able to deliver bites. Like you said, the 30-minute video, basically you should be able to pull up your phone, open that particular app, speak at a phone and ask that particular training body a specific question to get a specific answer. So trained based on your particular needs, your individual, not just like a blanket training curriculum that's, being determined by someone, a learning and development director or VPO.
So are you developing that app, My AI Trainer?
I think
are you making an announcement here? Because that sounds really cool.
I think I'm behind. I think it's already been
That's amazing.
developed.
I would love
we just
that.
don't know yet.
So it exists and I didn't know this?
Yeah, there's a couple teams building it, but it's still...
We live in good times. We live in good times. The speed of development is amazing.
Daily. This happens daily to me. It's incredible.
Wow. See, I can't take a vacation. Look what happens.
These kids nowadays, they're just dropping out of school to do it too. That's wild, as we're seeing more and more. But to your point around the agents, the agents to be able to help you on individual things. And I'm curious, I think to your point is the different roles and responsibilities. Like you have so many, how many people work for the company in total, roughly?
For residential, we have 42.
42. But you think about operations on site, leasing, and you may even have partners. Each person has a different role. So in AI, there's going to be different things, like whether it's thinking about the scope of land use, permitting, to architectural and design. How each one of those is a different element. So how do you think about like the shift from the old, the just 2 or 3 or 4 years ago to now thinking about AI and deploying it? Is that something you're already doing on your development or your architecture?
Yeah, we have to, because we're small. Okay. So we're always looking for ways to be more effective and a lot quicker at what we're doing. And And we are using AI as a knowledge source. And I know on the architectural side, the design crews that we are working with, they have their own elements of AI that I'm learning about, what architects do now, what a landscape architect can do. And those are the teams I love to work with because they're really cutting edge. They can do things faster. They can also be more creative because the possibilities are huge, right? So I love surrounding myself with people who are engaging in an AI world. I also love the ability to describe what I want to AI and then turn it over to a design team. And that's getting better too. And that's exciting to see because I can put together a word salad, but I'd rather have it in a picture. I'd rather just hand that to them.
Yeah, the other thing, I think is it Vargos on the Lake? Was that your first development you ever did?
My first one with Huntington Residential.
So maybe if we dive back, I think you learn a lot of lessons probably early in your career, and you're like, I'm going to try and never repeat that. Were there any hard lessons, whether from that project or other developments, you don't even have to name them, that you learned as a developer? Because developers, in my opinion, take some of the biggest risk. Now, because you may not see a penny for 3 or 4 years. I was involved with a development that still isn't open.
It could be 5 years. Okay, Chris.
So maybe some hard lessons. Was there something that maybe surprised you or shocked you that you still to this day keep you up at night or you still remember that?
Oh, yeah. Well, people that have followed me and followed my career, they know about Vargos on the Lake. They know that we opened it and then a really unbelievable, tragic event happened. And that was Hurricane Harvey. We chose a site, which I think is still a great decision.
What year was that?
2000, yeah, 15.
15, okay.
And we chose a site that was on the bayou in Houston, and I stand by this site. It's a great location. Vargos was an old restaurant, so the whole city knows the name. It had been around for 50 years. My mother had a picture of me on the deck when we lived in Houston for 2 years when I was 4 years old on Easter Sunday at this restaurant. And so it was so exciting for me to say, Mom, I'm redeveloping that restaurant. It's going to be this amazing apartment community. We didn't start small. We went big. We went with the apartment community that needed the 35,000 square foot retaining wall on the bayou. It was an engineering miracle, but no one could have predicted what happened with Hurricane Harvey. To receive 59 inches of rain in 10 hours was just unbelievable. We had apartments that flooded. We had a breakdown of a lot of, utilities, a lot of the conveniences that people need. And it's a new building, and the heartbreak to see your brand new building go through something like that is amazing. So one of the first lessons of development that I learned was insurance is a good thing. And always make sure you're properly insured. And we definitely had some lessons there. I think insurance is just so expensive right now in multifamily between, liability with these frivolous lawsuits and then just the major liability that you're taking care of somebody's home. Insurance has gotten just outrageous. And it's one of the most uncontrollable expenses that we have. And it can really swing a budget, when you're looking at a 50% increase in your premium in a year. And we did go through years like that. So we always are looking for ways to get the best deal with insurance, but the best deal isn't always the cheapest insurance. So that was a big lesson. The other thing that I learned from that experience was the importance of documentation. And a big part of what I do as a developer, I want to spend all my time in inventing my common spaces and floor plans so that they're have the functionality for today's renter. But a big part of the job is administrative and making sure we're documenting and making sure that we've got everything in the right file because you are going to need it one day. And Harvey was a time that I needed to pull that file out because we had to get these apartments rebuilt very quickly and get people back into their homes.
Fast forward to today, what are the best markets to set foot and do some new development?
Well, I'm based in Texas. And everything that I see still supports what's happening in Texas right now. Austin is experiencing a bit of a slowdown. That's because they delivered a whole lot of product. But Austin will level out. And we're not seeing as much development right now. So supply and demand is going to right that wrong pretty quickly. I'm only developing in Houston right now, but we're looking at sites all throughout Texas. Dallas Fort Worth, we think is tapped out, and then it grows and grows and grows. It's just amazing what legs Dallas has right now. And when we look at companies that are moving around and relocating headquarters, we keep hearing Texas. So it is a strong market. It's a very strong metrics for development right now. We're seeing lease tradeout at my lease ups coming out of lease up 5 to 10%, and that's beating the national average, which is 3 or less right now. So we're really proud of that in Houston. We think what's happening in Houston, a lot of the job announcements that have been made center on Houston and some of the major ones that are coming. So as developers, we're all trying to figure out, well, where are they going? Where is that headquarter going to be, and how close can we get with our apartment communities?
Building something from the ground up, you said, it could be 5 years until you start seeing any type of money coming in. And then once it's built, you got to lease it up. So there's a lot of components out there. Every single one is critical for the success story. What would you say are some things that you and your company as a boutique firm developer offers that probably larger shops don't? Mm-hmm. What are some competitive advantages that you have in the market?
Well, one thing I've noticed is a lot of developers will build the same thing. So they get their floor plans that work, their footprints that work.
And they just replicate it over and over again.
Yeah, they do a different color scheme, or different skin on the building.
I can attest to that. I work for several, I've seen several.
It's a great business model, right? But for us, where we're doing 3 to 5 deals at a time, we can be more boutique. And so I'm really looking at how can I build for today's customer and create product differential from my competitors. One of the lease ups we just completed, we hit 90% leased in 9 months, which for Houston is pretty darn good, right? That's great. One of the things that this apartment community has is a 2-lane bowling alley. We didn't go cheap with this either. It's Brunswick, we leased to a pro bowler there. Okay. He loves the bowling lane. That product differential is a memory point. And everybody that comes in to lease an apartment, they get to throw the bowling ball down the alley, and however many pins they knock down, they get $100 off their first month. Wow. So still beats a month free, right? Yeah. And it's something they remember, and it's fun. And if they only get 2 pins, maybe we'll let them do a second chance. We make it fun, and they remember us. So we're always looking for ways to put that memory point in there. I have another community in an area called Jordan Ranch. I put a mechanical bull in that leasing office.
So cool.
Oh yeah. Everybody's thought, what are you doing? A mechanical bull? Well, I didn't have to plug it in. It moves, but it's not going to throw you off, but it's fun. And it's an Instagram photo, and everybody remarks about it. We named her. Her name is Sue-Ann. I know bulls are boys, but ours is a woman. And, and we try to think of something that's unique. Now, when it comes to the apartment, we're thinking about how do people live in that apartment and what do they need? Obviously, we went through this whole work from home trend. That's slowing down a little bit, probably a lot more than most of us are even acknowledging right now, as we're seeing with traffic on the road and office occupancy coming back up, and new office development happening too. That's exciting. But we're looking at that space now and saying, what are we doing with that space that we were occupying for a home office, and what do people need right now? What they need is basically a station that kind of is their own personal hub where they dump everything at night, recharge, and then pack it all up the next day so they don't forget anything. So we think about what that space looks like. We think about storage. That's really big right now. We're also thinking about parking, but something that is really meaningful to me right now is I'm building in the 4th largest city in America. Obviously, we're going to have our crime issues, as most cities in America have, right? Mm-hmm. When we did a heat map on what kind of crime is in the area, we noticed that at our communities, it's really just kind of the nuisance crime, the broken windows, car break-ins, that kind of thing. And the sad thing is that shows up in reviews. That could be a reason why somebody moves out. Where we can't guarantee somebody's safety, I am looking at apartment design now and saying, what can we do? I was just in Washington, D.C., and I was flying in, and it's a maze, as you get around D.C. And it was designed that way. It was meant to confuse the enemy. So you can't find the leader, right? So I'm thinking, what can we do in our parking garage, in our hallways, in our entrances? So our residents know it because they do it every day. But if you're not supposed to be in that building, you're going to get a little tripped up and maybe be in a situation where we can get you out before you get in too far. So those are some things that we're thinking about right now. How can we serve that need with our design?
I love that. I think about that. My dad was a firefighter police officer. And I think about that all the time, going into situations and thinking about my surroundings and safety now as a dad. And when I was single, now being a parent, I think about that all the time of safety, security. I was talking with an expert recently who builds houses, and he's like, once you have an incident, you never forget it. And there is no cost to putting something in.
Yeah.
It's so interesting too, because, I think a lot about, those challenges. You can't put everything into a building. But you definitely are probably, thinking about the types and demographics when you're going into development. Like you said, it could take 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So that things can change. So how are you sometimes, is there a certain percentage you allocate to a building of, okay, these are the things we're going to do, but are you always saving like 5, 10% for new technology that might come out as you get closer to leasing up, whether it's maybe a bowling alley isn't cool anymore. Now it's, pickleball. Or, it's shifted from tennis to something else. How do you think about innovation coming into development? And, how do you make those changes?
Yeah, we term that adaptive use. So I will set back some amenity space for adaptive use and figure out what we're going to do. We built one pickleball court. It was wildly successful. It's a $40,000 expense. I put it into my next community.
Sure.
Am I going to put it into the third one? I am, but I'm going to make sure it has a big shade structure over it. So I learned from that. So that adds another $25,000 to it. So now the price has gone up, but if it's getting used and people are enjoying it, that's great. Pickleball courts can also be adaptive in their own respect too. They can serve different sports as well. So we're looking at, what kind of courts are out there that can be many different things. And so I'm always on the hunt for that. So anybody that has a great idea for amenities at the apartment community or in the apartment, hit me up. I want to hear your ideas, and I'm going to think tank it and figure out, is it something we can do? Does it make sense to do that? I get my best ideas from leasing consultants who ask the question, why? Why'd you do this, Kate? It makes me rethink everything that we've done. But I always tell them there's a reason why we built it that way. I remember as a leasing consultant, and my peers did it too, we would kick the doors and say, why did they build it like this? We can't lease that apartment. And being in the seat of a developer now, I know there's a reason why it was built that way. It's a code, or it was a budget constraint, or that's where the building turns. You're going to get this crazy little floor plan, but at least we got rentable space in there, and that matters on the bottom line. So as a developer now, I take it upon myself to explain those things to my leasing team and make sure that they understand the reason behind everything that we do. And that helps them be better stewards of the community. It helps them sell that to people. So because they understand the whys, but it all originates with their question. And it's constantly making me think about that role of a leasing consultant and how can I deliver an apartment community that is different, that they are enjoying leasing, and we can be successful.
Yeah, it was interesting because we were just at an event, to your point, around the safety, but also interaction. I think there was a topic at one of the events where they said, if you have a friend in the community, and so I think almost like that development of making more interactions between people who live there, number one, having social spaces. But then we also saw as you talk about a lot, is like having almost like your human robot walking with you. But I think, that's the future too, is potentially for safety. We saw robots, we've seen all these different elements that can help keep people safe in the communities.
Yeah, there's a cool robot that if you have elevators, will just roam those hallways. And it's constantly videoing and makes noises. So if you're not supposed to be there, that thing's going to make you jump.
Yeah, but definitely. I know it's harder and harder on police. That's one of the key things. But and I'll never forget. I mean, you dive in all the time. The eyes and ears of properties are probably, you're seeing more than ever, and they can see the properties of maintenance people. So I mean, you're always. I'm kind of curious. Did you ever, in thinking through, how the eyes and ears of a property?
7 times more interactions. It's what maintenance teams have versus the leasing team. So that speaks for itself, right? So many touching points, so many opportunities. Now with technology, I think we're seeing cameras where, what we thought 5-10 years before, is the big brother, like we're living in it. We have Alexa knows everything we do. This technology that's being harvested knows more than we know about ourselves. Literally, I will challenge, right? We don't have that access to that data, but I could promise you that you'll be like shocked to understand like what your habits are, who you really are based on that information that Facebook harvests from you and other platforms. And that's also available to sell too. So that gets, harvested from you and goes around. It could be, a bad thing, but it could also be a good thing, right? Because for me as a consumer, I'm looking at it, and if I open Facebook, I don't want to, see something like woman perfume, something that I'm not using or intending to buy. If I feel like, buying shoes, and I talk to my wife about shoes, of course, my computer listens to me, so it knows exactly what it is. And then when I open Facebook, I'm finding shoes. Of course, it's a specific brand of shoes that they wanted to sell, right? But I think just for convenience, we gave this away a long time ago, privacy for convenience. But to Chris's point, between maintenance teams and technology that's available, you have like 24/7 access to, common areas to, you could build like, safety plan, like that's bulletproof. I'm curious though, if I was to be a new developer, right? And I would looking at you as a, industry expert, which you are, especially in developments. And I look for some valuable pieces of advice, or maybe even to hire you as an advisor for me, right? To help me build a great, successful apartment community. What are some things that, you will advise me at the very beginning if we were to have this conversation and I wanted to get something of high value out of the conversation when it comes to a new development?
I have spent the vast majority of my career understanding how to lease and market apartments. And the value that I would bring to a development team, a company that maybe just acquired some developments, is really understanding how people use that apartment, what their life is like in that apartment, and why do they lease it in the first place? Why do they lease one apartment over another? And when we start with a blank sheet of paper, and this apartment community can be anything we want it to be, that's who we need to start with. Kind of those micro conversations. I'll give you an example of one we're having right now. We're not tech heavy in our apartments. I walked into a Best Buy at Christmas time and I saw everybody was buying all the home tech they wanted. So it wasn't important to me to provide those thermostats. We're going to put the locks on the doors, the keyless locks on the door. Thank you. But they're coming with their own ring door cameras right now, the doorbells. And they put it on the door with a door bow that you can get on Amazon for $29. And let me tell you something, that camera is all over my apartment community. And when something happens, we're on the phone with a resident. We know they have that Ring camera. And we'll say, hey, Jenny, we're looking for some footage between and can you provide that for us? And if Jenny has it, she's going to share it because this is her community. And so all of a sudden we've got these cameras all throughout the community. And we used to spend thousands of dollars on that, but to get one at every single door. So now as a developer, I'm thinking about that. And people want it to be their own camera. I could provide it, but then they think you're Big Brother, right? So at one of our communities, what we did was we gave everybody a gift card to go buy their own. And, it negotiated a price on them and everybody could go get their own because we want them to have that. And so kind of thinking outside the box and working with developers on those conversations becomes really interesting. And to always remember, we're starting with a blank piece of paper and we're bound by a lot of things like codes and what's happening with the utilities in the area and the streets and whatnot. But when it comes down to how they're living in that home, we can build anything. And so I really want to start with what's possible.
I want to tell you about our new sponsor, iRestify. Property managers, here's the truth. Happy residents stay longer and clean properties create happy residents. That's exactly what iRestify does. They specialize in multifamily cleaning and maintenance services that keep your residents happy and buildings pristine. They handle everything from common areas to turnovers. iRestify provides fully vetted professional cleaning teams and uses its proprietary platform to remotely monitor, schedule, and manage cleaning and maintenance operations across property portfolios. You get proof of service, quality inspections, and resident satisfaction reports, all through one easy app. Visit iRestify.com to see why so many multifamily pros are switching to iRestify. Tell me about the story. Earlier on, I was listening to you, how you describe, this community that you built. And basically, I was about to stop you and say, I could live there because I could really live there. Like you describe it in so vivid terms that my imagination went there. I could imagine myself putting myself living at that community. So tell me about how you tell the stories and how you build the stories. I think that's incredibly important.
We love to build a story for every one of our communities. Our brand is Vic, VIC. Mm-hmm. When I was working with the ad group that helped us find our name, I said, I want it to be like the place where everybody wants to hang out. And they pitched these kind of fussy names at me, and none of them worked. I said, give me the 5 that you threw away, because I bet they're awesome. And one of them was Vic, VIC. And it could be a person's name. It could be a hangout place. And from that, we started to build stories about our apartment community. We have one apartment community that's all studios and micros. So that's our community where size doesn't matter. And so we ran with that idea, right? We had some fun with that. Jordan Ranch, we have that mechanical bull. It's more of a frontier feeling out there. We ran with that story. And so everyone on my team is a content creator, and they have a lot of fun doing this, okay? And I allow time in their day. I never push back if they're giggling, working on a video, doing the challenges that are out there. We always see, because they're going to use that as content, and it makes for really compelling, fun content. But when we're building from day one, we're starting with GoPros and showing the process of this community being built. And as team members come on board, they're discovering the apartment community, and I'm asking them to create that content. And so we're using that in our explainer videos, in our quick social media bites, in our posts and our stories, and fun little videos that we're sending out to the 20 people that came to look at it last week to remind them what they saw. We're always using that content. And so that it kind of takes on its own life when all of these people who are going to be charged with filling up this community, beating my pro forma, and making this a valuable asset, when they all come together and they're working on that and their creative minds start working, and I don't stand in their way. It's amazing what we get from that. And we are known for our social media. I've got some characters. They sing songs. They cover rap songs. They are out there doing fun things. One thing that's really cool at an apartment community is people know people's dog's name before they know their pet parent name. So my dog is Winnie. People may know my dog Winnie, but not know my name. And so we have some fun with that too, with the different dogs, because we are very, very pet friendly. If you can show me that you rescued your dog, we're not going to charge you any of the fees. Thank you for doing that and live at our apartment community. And we're known for that. So that's a story in itself. So we have stories that appeal to people who have different passions, and we develop those stories all throughout the lease up. And I think it becomes very compelling content.
That's something that blew me away, was, to your point, pets versus kids. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Like, for most people, it's not a pet, it's a family member. Mm-hmm. That blew my mind, how many people, like, I thought there were more kids than there were pets. No. It's not even close.
Could you tell the municipalities that? Because they're always wanting me to build like these big school bus turnaround, take all this land for a bus to turn around. And we may have 4 kids that get off the bus every day, if even that. Yeah. Most of their parents are driving them, but
with Waymo, that's all going to change.
It's all going to change. Yeah,
transportation is going to be blindsided. So that's actually something I wanted to dive into. You talked about the experience. You talk about changes in lifestyle and technology, expectations. What do you think? Is there a renter preference or an expectation that you think might change and blindside the industry in the next 3 to 5 years that's going to be just game changing?
Yes. I feel it coming on right now, and we are not prepared for it. We do not have the policies, the the laws and the Landlord Tenant Act to really address this need. And that is the need for flexibility. If somebody breaks their lease today, they've got to give me 60 days written notice. They're going to pay 2 months cancellation fee and for the 60 days that they lived in the apartment. That's very expensive. So what's happening? They're skipping out. And they're destroying their credit when they do this, right? But it's a generation that doesn't really understand yet the power of a credit score. Many of them don't have the traditional credit card. So that's not tracking with them, that they need to get that at some point. They need that. They're going to need a mortgage at some point. I hope they do. I want everyone to have the joy of ownership and mowing their own lawn and taking care of their own home someday. Yeah. But I think that we are not prepared for this demand for flexibility. Now, what's driving that flexibility? We're not staying in jobs 20 years like generations before us did. People are moving. They have different demands on how they're going to build their life that doesn't look like how we all grew up. They're in a very different world. They can make their way on a gig economy. And in my day, that meant you were babysitting. There wasn't much of a gig economy. And so we're trying to understand that they don't have that consistent salary, and that they may want to up and move. We need to be prepared for this because it's going to be something that they demand. And we could experience government interference where they want us to wipe away that debt to give these renters a fair chance at getting into home ownership.
I have 3 out of my 4 sisters who don't want to have a car. Blows my mind. And some of the people here, technologists, say, could you imagine moving to Atlanta or Houston and not owning a car?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But if you could change the map, where we've ridden in Waymos, I'm sure you have too, it's just game changing. I'm like, wow, if I could have productivity, and I can do other things. And then, and again, the things that we wanted, to your point, I asked them my sisters, if they wanted to buy homes 5, 6, 7 years ago. No interest. They want the flexibility. Mm-hmm. And I think you hit on it. It sounds like financial literacy and financial education are a big piece that we need to crack with a lot of renters to make sure they're prepared. But, how involved do you get on that side of the, of education to retain, you talk about the credit card and financial literacy and retention efforts. Is that a big piece you focus on as well? Is that retention of residents?
Yeah, I want to hit on that from 2 sides.
Sure.
First, I'll talk about our residents, and then I want to talk about my team members.
Yeah.
My residents, I probably have less influence on, but we have engaged a company called Flex at our apartment communities where they make sure the rent is paid, and if you're in the gig economy, you can make small payments to Flex to pay your rent. And that, I believe, having that available to a customer so that they are properly budgeting in kind of a way with some training wheels on them is so helpful. So hats off to the brilliant people who have made that possible. I think that one of the things that we do make sure we talk to people about is we have 24-month leases. We make sure they understand what they're getting into, because we saw some of the first skips we had were, people that signed those 24-month leases, where they thought it was a great idea to lock into their rent for 24 months. Certainly that's how we sold it. But then they realized, I can't make a 24-month commitment, and they want to get out in 10 months, right? So no, you still have a lot of time left on your lease. And so we have to have a conversation with them about that and letting them know how that's going to impact their credit. Now, we're not going to put on our financials that they owe us $48,000 because we know we're never going to collect it. So what we're trying to do is negotiate with them a payment system that they can stick to and then hold them to it. It's good for them, and it's certainly good for us as well. Now I want to talk about my team members.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Please.
Please.
And this is really important to my culture and our company. And it's something that I learned from Bill Nye, not the science guy, the apartment guy, Bill Nye. He's been the CEO of a few companies. He wrote a great book called Culture Grows. And a long time ago, Bill made a great point to me about the difference between a raise and a life-changing event, money event. And so many of my team members come to me and they want a raise. And I could give them a $2 raise. I could give them something like that, but is it really going to change their life? Bill's point was, when you hand somebody a check that is larger than their paycheck, larger than a month's pay, maybe 2 months' pay, that's life-changing money, because that money can go into the bank and you can save it, or you can invest in something, or you can make a purchase that takes you out of your daily budget. And so at my company, one of the things that I wanted to do was make sure I created events where my team could get that life-changing money, every single member of the team. And when we just sold a property this year, and the best day of my career, I get so emotional, was walking around and handing out this life-changing money.
Amazing.
We were at a table with the on-site team, and most people were polite and put the check away, but we had a housekeeper that ripped open that envelope. And in a language that I don't speak, she started just screaming and getting on the phone and telling people. And that to me was a moment that I will never forget in my career. I have a maintenance supervisor who's been with me since day one. He now oversees all of our facilities. And we couldn't live without him. He's amazing. For me to hand him a check that he could go buy a house was incredible. He's an immigrant. He's taking care of his extended family. This was a moment for him. And I'm part of that. I built that opportunity for him. And he worked so hard. It was my pleasure to include him in this. And it was really a fun day. And now it'll be different what people make on different properties. But now when we're budgeting and we're thinking, if we're keeping that property and it's going to be a stabilized asset, how can we build those moments into our budget so we can give them that? I don't want to give them the $500 renewal bonus every month. I'd rather pull that and make it a big event for them in some way. And so those are some things we're reinventing as a company right now.
It's so incredible. Like, as you share the story, it reminded me back of 7-8 years ago when we sold Luxor, and the opportunity to change people's lives in our company. I think Richard Branson said, if you take care of your people, they will take care of the rest.
Yeah.
People focus so much on their investors or focus so much on their residents or customers, and that's important, but you got to take care of your people first, because they're the front lines to work with your customers, and they're going to determine if your investors get a check or not.
Absolutely. And in a time where it's really hard to hang on to great service team members that are HVAC certified and show up for that water leak on a Sunday, and to hang on to them, this is a reason why they're going to stay. Other companies don't give them this opportunity.
Let's talk about another opportunity. Gary Vaynerchuk famously said, if you're a business, you had to be a business and a media company at the same time, because attention, it's currency. And everybody's fighting over everybody else's attention. You mentioned your leasing agents and site staff being content creators. How do you pick them? Like, what's the process? Second part of the question is that how do you control the narrative of what they're doing, how they're posting, and how they're positioning themselves as employees of your company? So I'm curious if there's any rules out there, or how do you go about that?
I don't need to hire somebody that has experience on the leasing and marketing side, because for one, I am a trainer at heart. I like to teach them and not inherit somebody else's lack of training
or bad habits.
Right, exactly. And so, because they're hard to break, and once you fall into that habit, it's just how they do things. And so I want to make sure that I'm hiring for that personality that people, they want to interact with, they enjoy, they're loyal, and they're enthusiastic. That to me is so much more important than what their closing ratio was in another company. How enthusiastic are you? Because I kind of think the closing ratios are a little bit of bullshit. At Leasing consultant can manipulate a closing ratio if they want to.
100%.
So yeah, they all want to be 100%, right? So, and they come in bragging, I have an 80% closing ratio. Yeah, that's great. But I'm going to read for how do they interact with people? Did I want to sit and have a conversation with you for a while? What creative things are you doing? How are you out of the box? Because that's the kind of company we are. So to your next part of that question with creating content and, giving them the reins to do that. For the first 90 days, anything they create has to be approved by one of our senior team members. And so that's our opportunity to train them and say, wow, this was really great. Maybe we'll see a skill in them that we didn't know they had. So we're going to totally exploit that, and work it in our favor. But we're going to help them find that company voice along with their own voice too. We're going to help them really hone the message of the property along with their own voice too. And so once they get to that 90-day point, we'll give them the password so that they can start posting. I don't have a lot of fear here because I can take down a post like that. So if it was wrong or it went the wrong direction or it was misinterpreted, we can get it down pretty quickly with not too much harm done. I know that, you could get cold played really fast around here, but we're going to make sure that, we're still keeping an eye on everything that's happening out there. But as I said earlier, giving them that opportunity to just fly with it and have some fun with it. They're creating a better content calendar than I ever could.
There's one of the questions too that we got on this was, from Kirk Downey, and Angie Pusateri, their team power couple down there. But what's a truth that multifamily that most leaders still resist believing?
Oh, okay. This is a great question. Kirk and Angie, good question.
Yeah.
I had to put some thought into this because I really feel as though this is a great opportunity to address something that's been on my mind. And that's that we think there's a lot of burnout in our industry. And I would argue that point. Yeah, burnout exists, but long before there's burnout, there's rust out. Have you heard that term?
I haven't.
Rust out?
Rust out.
Yeah.
Rust out.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so rust out is where you're still doing everything. Burnout is when you want to stop doing it, right? You're just done. But rust out is you're still doing everything, but it's lost its shine. And I think that happens with the repetitiveness of a stabilized operational asset, that they just get into a routine and it becomes a little too routine. It's lost its shine. There's no luster. There's no sparkle. There's no excitement. And that lack of enthusiasm will eventually lead to burnout. But if we can catch that early on in the rust out phase and bring back that sparkle, bring back that shine, then you're going to have a more engaged team member. And so I think that that's kind of what we've always been addressing is how do we keep people from burning out? And the opportunity is to get it in the rust stage before it burns out.
Okay, it's been quite amazing to have you on, and thank you for making a special trip to see us here in the studio. One of the things that I think about a lot lately, probably for a few years now, it's legacy. So as we wrap up this great conversation, I want to ask you, how do you think about legacy? How do you, want to be remembered when it's all said and done? We'll have an expiration date, things happen. That's just life in general, and also career-wise too, right? It's going to be a point where you will say, that was it for me. And then you look back and you think about what did I leave behind? How would you like to be remembered?
I think about this a lot because I want to make sure that it's my mission, my personal mission. I want to make sure I'm always living it. So first of all, my fiduciary responsibility to my company and my investors, that we're building great assets. I want to be able to look back and know that every opportunity was a success story. And so I think that would be an incredible legacy that I'm living right now, and I want to continue to do so. Because those people will follow you through your career. And so I want to make sure that I give them a reason to follow what I do. At the beginning of our conversation, we talked about my earlier years where I was training, professional development, and then going on to be a speaker. I have met thousands of people in this industry, and so many of them know me, and I wish I knew everybody's name when I saw them. And I wish I, remembered what property or what company they work for or what city they're in. And I really try hard to do that. But the exciting thing is I know they're in the apartment industry. I know that they met me, and I know that I had an opportunity to impact their lives. And so I always want to be remembered as the person that took the time, that answered an email from maybe a leasing consultant that was feeling the rust out instead of the burnout, or, maybe somebody that was in between jobs and needed, help connecting to the next job. I want to be remembered as the person that was always there to help people in their career growth and encourage them. And then the third thing is, there's not a lot of women that do what I do.
Mm.
And even when I explain what I do, a lot of people still think there's a man behind me. And although I have a business partner and it's a guy, I want to be an example that women can get into this role. I can really count on just my hands how many female developers I've met in my career. There's not a lot. And I would love to see more women step into the development, investment side of this business. And so I want to be an example of somebody who did it, made it look super fun and super interesting. And I want to pave the way for more women to see themselves doing what I do.
There's so many pieces there and so many great nuggets from this conversation. So thanks for coming to Atlanta to sit down with us. You are a superstar. You share so many nuggets and so many stories. You've obviously made a big impact on my life over the years. So thank you for that. Especially in the early days of the package world, you were a true believer.
You did a good job.
Yeah, we were very lucky.
You did a good job.
We had the right timing and great partners. I will say this, you're spot on, paying it forward for people to get into this industry. And as you talked about, I remember when Houston had like 40,000 units right before a hurricane, and then it all went away. Mm-hmm. And the same thing we're seeing Atlanta. I was just at an event last week, and Jay Parsons is showing it that even with these deliverables, the demand is going up and it's just dropping off. It seems like there's such a huge opportunity for development, number one, but number two, for bringing people in this industry. I know Adrian is huge on the trades and training people. Is there anything that you want to leave us with on that, of how to get these people, who are going to college, get them into the industry? Because I know you're impacting people. Is there something you're working on right now, or a nonprofit you care about, or something else, or someone who's doing great work that you'd like to call out?
Oh, let me think about that.
Or a resource, even a resource that you want to guide us to before we go.
Some of the things that I think are really exciting right now is that I know that multifamily always leads the way out of any economic blip, right? Mm-hmm. So right now as a developer, we're really suffering because of interest rates. Come on, we could be creating so many jobs and so many wonderful homes right now, but it's hard to pencil out. But we know it's coming, right? Because the demand is going to be overwhelming soon, and it'll be a great time to come into the industry. And I am really impressed with how the conferences have held on and rebound from COVID, got people back to the conferences. I mean, we all went to some amazing ones in the last 12 months, record attendance, exciting things. I'm on the board for Cultivate, which is a leaders only program that NAA has put together. And we're really excited to be designing our content right now. And the event will be in Nashville in the spring. And I'm just super excited to see these leaders come together and talk about these really exciting topics and changes. And I think that point in 2026, we will all just have that kind of fresh, 25's over. We're diving into 26. It's going to be a great year. And I think the timing of Cultivate is going to be amazing. I'm super proud to be on this board and to be designing that. And I'm really jazzed about the leaders in our industry right now. We have some amazing leaders who truly care about building these great cultures and opportunities for people. And I love that I'm part of building an experience, a room a platform where all these leaders are going to come together and take us to the next level.
I love your passion. You're inspiring right now with all this motivation. And I think we're going to see after, people start viewing this, just people jumping into the industry and wanting to come see you live in person. So thanks for bringing your energy and your passion. This has been so fun. I can't wait for the next one.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me.